Your Holiness, it is a great honor for Marsha McNutt and myself to have this conversation together.
It is, for me, the thrill of a lifetime to be able to share the stage with two such incredible champions for sustainability and equality.
Your Holiness, esteemed 14th Dalai Lama, your moral leadership and active advocacy for humanity's future on Earth is recognized across the entire world. You stand up for people and planet, always clear about the urgency of our current climate emergency, while being equally passionate and hopeful of a peaceful and sustainable future for all people on Earth. In your latest book, Our Only Home, A Climate Appeal to the World, you make the fundamental point that if science shows that we are at risk of destroying our planet, then we must also be able to protect it. And climate protection for you, Your Holiness, is a story of hope and happiness when people live in harmony with the planet. In this context, we would like to have a conversation about the paradigm shifts, and it's a great privilege to have this dialogue. Let me start directly with the following first question. So, Your Holiness, you emphasize in your teachings the interdependence of humans and nature, how connected and dependent we humans are with nature. My question is, what kind of interdependencies, connectedness do you see in this situation of climate crisis, biodiversity crisis, and rising inequality? Your Holiness, please.
If we really, you see, try to live Mars, impossible. Impossible. So therefore, only this planet, blue planet, is the only our home. Tibetan Buddhist tradition and Nalanda tradition, very much logical approach. So this goes very well with modern science. Last now few decades, I have serious discussion with scientists. Since we emphasis on logical approach, not just a faith, therefore, you see, it is very useful to discuss with scientists like that. Differences, richer people and poor people. There's, I think, a global level. Also, you see, there's a problem. And then different nations, also, you see, national level, the gap, rich and poor. This not only morally wrong, but practically long run, it is, I think, source of problem. So therefore, you see, we have to pay more attention, more equal distribution. So, in this respect, I describe myself as a socialist. You see, think the well-being of public, particularly poorer section of people, like that.
You reflect on the role of science and the need to train our minds. But with so many dismissing science, dismissing spirituality, and other forms of advice, what can science do to support your vision for every human being?
Now, time come, scientists also should pay more attention about our, I usually call, inner science, about our mind, about our emotion, and how much sort of a connection our brain and emotion, and how to keep peace of mind and reduce anger, hatred, jealousy, these mental elements connected with some brain. So some scientists already showing interest. You see, I usually say Buddhist psychology or Buddhist sort of, sometimes I use the word hygiene of emotion, or the hygiene of physical very much sort of developed, and still people pay much attention. And now hygiene of emotion is very important. That Indian tradition, you see, the training our mind not just through faith, but you see through reasoning. You see, we can combine with scientists.
Both Marsha McNutt and myself hosting our first collaboration with the Nobel Foundation on the Nobel Prize Summit is an example and manifestation on exactly the interdisciplinary frontier of the social sciences and the natural sciences for humanity to become stewards of our planet. And I think I'll be learning and using your phrase on hygiene of emotions and the inner sciences, because when we look at the current situation around the world, it's actually very encouraging. The last opinion poll, the biggest opinion poll ever pursued, actually shows that almost 60-70% of citizens around the world are deeply concerned of how we are undermining life support systems on Earth, that the climate crisis is real, and want to have climate action. So there is a deep inner consciousness among citizens, but it doesn't really come across in policy and business and in the political discourse around the world. So I think your conclusion on the universality of harmony and love is something that we should exploit much more effectively. But this takes me to the next question, which is, how do we accomplish this transformation towards a loving, harmonious relationship with the planet? Because, Your Holiness, you mentioned that we live on the same planet. We need to reconnect humanity with the planet, and that we, across all religions, across all life kind of perspectives, need to be responsible for a healthy Earth. So my question to Your Holiness is, how can we take responsibility for a healthy planet? What do you see as the avenues for us to succeed in maintaining a healthy planet?
We need holistic view. Now here, this the environment, according to some scientists, they say the global warming, now decade by decade, it become more serious. So we should pay more attention about ecology and preserve water resources, like that. Telling we really need oneness, or concept of oneness of 7 billion human beings. We all live one planet. Our basic way of life is same. So, according to that reality, now no longer to emphasis my nation, my country. Now we should think more of we humanity. We should no longer sort of saying my nation, my country. So we really need a concept of oneness of 7 billion human beings.
Your Holiness, I think that the pandemic has been such an immediate illustration of the points that you just made about how if we consider only the physical well-being of people on this earth and don't worry about their mental well-being during unusual times of isolation and lockdown and other challenges to normal social living, we are finding that people are faring very poorly because the health of the mind has not been taken into account along with the health of the body. And when you speak of oneness, again, it is nonsensical for any nation to think that they alone can address the pandemic within their own borders without worrying about dealing with the pandemic on a global basis, because no country is so isolated that it can wall itself off for the indefinite future from every other country, and therefore the pandemic must be solved everywhere. So thank you for those insights. Let me go on to my next question. You've urged us to maintain an equitable climate and to protect nature, but you've also mentioned very passionately about the need to close the gap between rich and poor, and to remember that oneness of humanity. So my question to you is it possible to maintain an equitable climate and to protect nature while at the same time reducing inequalities on Earth?
In education, not much pay attention about the ecology or oneness of humanity, rather emphasis my nation, their nation, and that's the causes of many problems. So through education, I often used to feel the young children, they have no idea my nation and your nation so long played together with smile. Then once we join education, existing education, then you say they make distinction, my nation, my religion, so on. So now education should have more universal level.
You are so right when you say the focus needs to be on creating this harmony between nature and humans, because if there's one thing that geoscientists know, is that the Earth will go on regardless of what we do to it. The Earth has taken cataclysms of immense proportions in the geologic past, and yet still we have this planet. But the real question is, will the planet also include humans as a major species? And that's what we have to be worried about. So let me ask you another question. You are calling for solutions and actions. And of course, scientists are as well. But how can people be motivated to act in accordance with these principles, given the fact that so many humans take the short-term view rather than the long-term view that you advocate? And what solutions would you highlight?
I feel education is key thing. Usually our thinking short-sighted and narrow-minded. Then just so as the interest or interest for myself and my community, my nation, and best my continent. There's still, you see, the strong meaning of my. So now the best way for your own interest, think about well-being of humanity on this planet. That's the best way to achieve your own happiness. since we are part of the human society. So all these very much related with education and, you see, more broad mind, a holistic way of thinking. Then for your own, you see, interest for on single sort of sentient being, since we are a social animal, so for the best interest for your own sort of interest, you should pay more attention about humanity on this planet.